All right, it is 7:42 now at News Talk 96.5 KPEL, and the Jaci Russo joins us in studio. So it's called the Super Bowl, of course, because that's what it is, but it's actually your Super Bowl in the world of marketing and advertising to see everything.
Well, that's part of my moral and ethical and sports dilemma. I'm a who dat till I die. Mm-hmm. There's pictures of me at 2-3 years old wearing Saints clothes. So I've been a lifelong fan. Even when I lived in Los Angeles, I would find this one sports bar in LA that would show Saints games.
Awesome. There's always that's what a lot of people don't know if you've only lived here. Every city has a Saints spot.
Right.
Even in Atlanta, it's a place called Front Page News, and it's a guy, I believe from like Livingston Parish somewhere, owns it. They have really good food that we're used to here, and they play every game. Yeah.
So it's Hermosa Beach, and it's the Raging Cajun Cafe, and it's a couple of guys from Lafayette who used to be baggers at Little Veros.
Really?
And their mama ships them food. Like,
Really?
Raw ingredients that are authentic and real, and then they cook it up.
That's awesome.
So there's always a place.
One of the things that I saw, because I'm always I like the nerdy stuff. I know the sports is fun, and I like to watch a football game, but I love to watch how all the pieces and parts come together. And one of the things that stands out is when they built Mercedes-Benz Stadium, do you know there's not a single permanent piece of signage?
Wow.
In the entire thing. They say the only only permanent sign is Mercedes-Benz Stadium on the inside, on the outside. Everywhere else, because it's a shared venue.
Sure.
Atlanta United, the soccer team, plays there, and the Falcons. So sponsors, logos, partnerships, marketing has to change twice a week for half the year.
Interesting.
And I thought that was really cool because you kind of watched it last night. Everything was Super Bowl.
Right.
And it's easy for them to do it at a stadium like that.
Well, I think it's really cool that they not only stole our thunder, but they also took the name of our Superdome.
Yes.
So, the whole thing is just all jacked up, I think, for Saints fans.
Yep.
But it is, in addition to being a big deal football game, it is the Super Bowl of advertising. Mm-hmm. And so, no matter what your feelings are on the NFL and refs and teams and Saints, I had to watch the commercials.
But so I assume a little bit later on this morning, we'll get the ratings from last night as they all kind of pour in overnight. Sure. If it's a huge down year, what does it have to be for the rates that people pay for commercials to be affected?
Well, that's the challenge because they go up every year no matter what the ratings do.
The rates go up. Okay.
Yeah. Every year the rates go up no matter what the ratings do.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, lends itself to all of the drama around the game. And so it's not nearly as much now about pairs of eyes watching because the commercials are released in advance, some of them, not all, and they all have tens of millions of views on YouTube and get all these press mentions and articles written about them before the game even happens.
Yeah. I will say this. One of the things that stood out to me commercial-wise, so we can talk about that, there was a Washington Post commercial, and it was voiced by Tom Hanks.
Yes.
And at first, when I was hearing that this was going to happen, what I was really bracing for was, okay, are we just going to do a minute on all we have done to report on Trump?
Right.
And because it's tiring, okay? And then when I saw, they started out, and I kept seeing reporters, okay? And it wasn't just CNN and MSNBC. It was Fox News reporters, too. It was radio reporters. It was news. It was everything. So we're not even talking about just their publication, okay? Not just a newspaper reporter. Showing all this video, showing the different stories, and not just politics, showing wildfires, showing what's happening in the Middle East, showing everything. And I thought that was pretty powerful. One of their tagline is "Democracy dies in the dark," and that's the Washington Post's thing.
Right.
I thought it was powerful.
The spot itself was beautifully written and incredibly well executed, and Hanks is absolutely the right voice for that.
Yeah.
The challenge is it should have really been released by the Press Association because of the political kerfuffle that the Washington Post finds itself in on a regular basis, and because they do tend to take sides in battles, the spot itself was contradictory because they're right. Democracy does need light to shine upon it, but it needs an unbiased, fair, true journalistic light, and WAPO has proven itself to not be that voice.
So is it more like a do as I say, not as I do
sort
pretty
of
much.
Situation? The spot was beautiful, and I believe in everything about the spot until the very last title card when you realize who ran it. Otherwise, I think the spot nailed it.
Interesting. What else stood out to you commercial-wise?
It was interesting. I I thought there were some real winners. And obviously, when I go back and look at my notes, I realize I am super drawn to the emotional ones. You know, the things that are poignant and beautiful and tell a story and made me tear up. Those are the ones that get me. And it started as early as Bumble, which is a dating app. But Serena Williams' story and it being about women empowerment and girls and strength, it was touching because I see that and I think of my 3 daughters. And I want them to have that theory.
But how good of a right turn is it from what all those other dating websites always were?
Right.
You look at them and they're hookup websites, basically.
Right.
They're changing, going back to what you love to talk about, changing the conversation. They're saying, no, take control of who you're dating.
Right.
And that's a big thing,
When especially since they've really launched and pushed on college campuses with women. And so that's been their target audience. And it was interesting to hear middle-aged white guys in the room say, what's that? What's that spot about? What is Bumble? Is that a hair product? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're so not the target audience.
Yeah, they don't know that.
Shh, this is not for you, boys.
There are some, and I'm trying to even think. See, it's so not memorable.
Right.
There were some spots for products that I never knew, and I didn't know what it was by the end.
Right.
Is that ultimately ineffective?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you also have to think maybe you're not the target audience. That's why you don't know.
Okay.
And so I think oftentimes when we look at the spots that don't resonate with us, that doesn't mean they weren't good. It just means they weren't good for us. And so they may be good for 20 million other people.
And that's okay.
Right.
It's
right.
You go where your audience
But
is.
there's some spot that I think that crossed all lines and barriers. I think Bud Light nailed it.
Okay.
They
didn't do the Clydesdales this year.
They did not, which I miss the Americana of it all because I love that. But man, the corn syrup thing was funny.
Okay. I was confused about this because the first time I saw it, Bernie, do you know this about Bud Light? They don't use corn syrup in their brewing process.
Okay.
And Budweiser powers the main Budweiser plant with wind energy.
Right.
I didn't know either one of these things.
I didn't know that.
Neither.
And I also don't think I really care if I'm drinking beer.
Sure.
And so it's just this little nugget. Now, it made me say, I've never even thought about how you sweeten beer. Because in my mind, beer's not sweet.
Right.
But that's a part of it.
But it's about changing the conversation. So what they're doing right now is they're seizing control of this and saying, for you to put corn syrup in your beer is bad. We don't. Look how great we are. And I tell you what, it's going to change their sales.
But who does? But okay, so then I always have one more question. Who does put cornstarch in their beer? I mean, corn syrup in their beer.
Well, as you could see by the commercial, as they delivered the corn syrup to Coors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, that was the spot. The corn syrup is accidentally delivered to the castle of the Bud Light, and they're like, we don't use this. But you know what these other guys do? So they brought the corn syrup to Miller Lite and says, is this yours? And they're like, oh, no, we got our delivery this morning. So then they brought it to Coors, which is up high on a mountain with snow.
Yes.
Nice reference.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, yeah, that's ours. Thanks, man. And so it's really funny to see them change that conversation and own it.
Well, and make a potential consumer care about something they did not care about before.
Which is great, right?
Okay.
T-Mobile nailed it. Their series of text ads was genius.
I loved the one where it was the parent texting the daughter as if it was Google.
Right.
Like, what? Best
Parmesan chicken.
Yeah, best chicken parm recipe. Mom's chicken parm recipe. Best chicken for chicken parm. And like the daughter is obviously saying, Dad, this isn't Google, this is a text. Oh, okay. And then right below, ask another question.
Because who hasn't been in that situation? Everybody knows how that works.
Yes.
And then Bud Light nails it again with their Game of Thrones tie-in. Genius.
Big
because,
one.
I think that's what Bud Light did, the whole, that theme of spots that we've been seeing for a couple of years now is a takeoff on Game of Thrones. And so finally the two kingdoms united.
Come together.
And they did it beautifully.
What about the electric Audi spot?
That's the next one on my list.
So the guy, we were talking about it this morning with Stevie P. The guy's running through this field of wheat, sees his long-lost grandfather. The grandfather says, I have something for you in the garage. You just expect it's going to be this classic car. Maybe he's restored for his grandson. He opens it. It's an electric Audi. The guy gets in it, and he's goo-goo gaga over the features and everything else and touching it. Then he starts convulsing.
Wait. Right at that point, my house says, the party goes, why would the grandfather have an electric Audi? So it worked.
Yes.
It landed. People paid attention to it because they were like, wait a minute. And then the guy starts to convulse.
And he snaps back into it, and he was choking on a cashew.
Right.
And someone was giving him the Heimlich, and he was hallucinating.
Right.
I love it.
I love
great.
it. And then you saw the follow-up. Mr. Peanut is now running a GoFundMe account to buy the guy the electric Audi, and it's already raised tens of thousands of dollars.
How cool is that?
I'm like, did they know ahead of time? Did they just move that quickly? I was impressed.
They had to. Well, they had to. You know how these marketing groups go. They're probably with the same agency.
Sure, but it was impressive. It was well done. I thought the Kia spot with the Georgia assembly plant.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Beautiful.
I've driven past that a million. You go down, you're in between Montgomery, Alabama, and Atlanta. In the middle, right along the state line, is this huge plant. One side is Kia, one side is Hyundai, and it is massive.
Sure.
It was beautiful.
The spot made me cry. Yeah. But you know what? It was well done. It was Americana. It was that bit of we are awesome as a country that I was looking for that you always find in at least one of the spots. It was well done. Bubbly Blue Blay made me laugh.
Yes.
I mean, that was funny. It was cute. The Alexa Harrison Ford spot killed me.
So basically, he's proven that if you're an old guy, you're going to mess up Alexa, and then his dog ordered a pallet of dog food.
Awesome.
Just by barking.
Right.
Hilarious.
Yeah. But it was so well done because it highlighted the benefits of Alexa and the ease of use because even a dog could do it. It made fun of kind of the old guys who don't get it.
Right.
And it was beautifully told. It was perfect.
Okay, so I want to switch gears just a little bit to talk about the game as a whole, the Super Bowl as a whole.
Snore.
You know,
I was cheering for the Saints.
I was cheering for the Saints too. I was watching a bunch of national news over the weekend on Saturday because I had to kind of get away from it a little bit. And on at least 4 shows, possibly 5, the shows ended with a Super Bowl prediction. Okay. And in 2 situations, one guy, he was a political commentator, said, I'm not even talking about the Super Bowl because it's a sham.
Right.
And every New Orleans Saints fan should enjoy watching this very expensive exhibition game that's happening because that's all it's about.
Right.
You know, and it's just sort of this universal feeling. It will remain to be seen if that shows up in people actually watching. But
right. I hope the ratings were affected. I hope it sends a message to advertisers and to the NFL. I thought that the way New Orleans handled the whole situation was classy.
Yeah.
When you saw the crowds yesterday gathered throughout the city for the Boycott Bowl, it was beautiful.
Well, I can't wait to see the New Orleans ratings.
Right.
First of all,
right,
and then see where they are as a whole.
Right? Has there ever been a 0 rating?
Yeah,
a 0.1.
Yeah, hash marks.
Yeah.
All right, Jackie. Always great. It is your Super Bowl. I'm glad to see that you watched it for the commercials. You know?
What we would do is, we've always been the opposite at our gatherings. So we watch the commercials, silence, no one's allowed to talk. And then as soon as the commercial break is over, we get up, go to the bathroom, make food, change the channel because, we wanted to make sure we weren't helping the ratings at all. Because I'd pre-watched a lot of the spots in anticipation of my job, but some of them they didn't release in advance this year.
Yep.
You had to watch them live.
We have about a minute left. I want to ask clients that you have, do you ever get a surge after the Super Bowl saying, okay, now I get it. Like, now I want to make an impact?
Sure.
Or can you take that into a meeting and say, look what happened with Audi?
Well, I think that everybody sees the benefit of having the country talk about you. I think everybody sees the PR push that comes from it and realizing not only do they get the time in the game and those eyes, but they get all the advance buzz, they get all the post discussions, they get all this earned media, and then they come to me and they say, I have $7. Can we do that? And I think, not so much.
Yeah.
So, not so much with your $7. And so, it's a challenge. I was surprised / disappointed that no one figured out a way in the 2 weeks from the NFC Championship to the Super Bowl to tie in what happened with the Saints.
Yeah.
I think, I bet you someone tried and the NFL stopped it.
Probably so.
Because they control the rights.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. Well, and I noticed not one time was it referenced during the game by Tony Romo or anybody else.
It was not referenced at the NFL Honors,
right?
Which had a 30-minute opening monologue stand-up set by Steve Harvey where they were making jokes about things.
Right.
I just think they wanted to act like it didn't happen.
Well, that's the only way they're going to get it to go away. And they think as long as they ignore it, it will happen. I still can't believe that Drew Brees was robbed of Offensive Player of the Year and MVP.
I agree. Jaci Russo, thanks for coming by.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
7:56 now.